Okay, let's dive right back in where we left off. So in our last explainer, we saw Dhirubhai Ambani master the Indian bureaucracy and outright win the physical battles of the Great Polyester War. I mean, the man was riding high. He was literally the guru of the equity cult, with millions of retail investors hanging on to his every move. But as you're about to see, the battlefield is about to change drastically. We're moving away from the factories and yarn markets and straight onto the front pages of the daily news.
Reliance was suddenly staring down a completely new kind of threat. This was a massive shift from an industrial war to a high-stakes, forensic paper war. Now, Ambani had totally figured out how to brilliantly navigate the incredibly complex licensing system of the Indian government. He knew how to pull the levers of power. But he was about to face a force that thrived on exposing the exact kind of loopholes he was accused of exploiting. It was an enemy that, frankly, couldn't be bought.
Section 1. The press baron steps in.
To really understand this new threat, we have to talk about Ramnath Goenka. He was the 81-year-old Marwari master of the Indian Express, and he wielded India's biggest newspaper circulation. We're talking over 670,000 copies across 12 regional editions, literally like a weapon. So picture this. On one side, you have Dhirubhai, the ultimate manipulator of the political system. On the other side, you've got Goenka, a fierce anti-establishment press baron who was famous for exposing corruption and resisting censorship during Indira Gandhi's emergency when pretty much everyone else backed down. Interestingly, they used to be on pretty good terms. Ambani would visit him regularly. But here's the catch. Goenka also had a close, almost father-son relationship with Nusli Wadia of Bombay Dyeing, who just happened to be Ambani's absolute fiercest corporate rival.
The tipping point came when Wadia's wife actually showed Goenka how Reliance had allegedly been planting negative press stories against Bombay Dyeing. Goenka was absolutely furious and promised to crack down. Now Dhirubhai, alarmed at losing Goenka's favor, quickly scrambled to arrange a peace meeting at Goenka's penthouse. For 45 minutes, Ambani tried to smooth things over, attempting to carve up the market, and he even literally caressed Goenka's feet to show respect. As he was leaving, he suddenly hugged a very startled Nusli Wadia, asked if they were friends now, and then prostrated himself before Goenka one last time. But Wadia, he saw right through the performance. The second the elevator doors closed, Wadia gave this scathing warning. "I bet you that before the lift reaches the ground floor, he'll already be plotting where next to stick the knife into me." And Wadia hit the nail on the head. The truce lasted maybe a few days before hostilities completely resumed, and Goenka decided it was time to officially unleash his newspaper on Reliance.
Section 2. The accountant takes the case. Now, Goenka was smart. He knew that to investigate a financial wizard like Ambani, a regular reporter just wasn't going to cut it. He needed an auditor. Enter S. Gurumurthy. Gurumurthy wasn't part of the flashy Bombay business elite. He was a 36-year-old chartered accountant from Madras, deeply rooted in a strict sense of personal probity, and tied to the rule-following RSS movement. This is crucial, because where a lot of people looked at Ambani's rule-breaking as this sign of entrepreneurial genius, Gurumurthy saw it as a deeply dangerous symptom of India's institutional weakness. He was a guy completely immune to the usual business compromises, and he came armed with a profound knowledge of corporate accounting and law. He was the perfect detective for this job.
So, where does an investigator like Gurumurthy start? By following the paper trail overseas, of course. He started digging into this highly mysterious 1982 investment where millions were pumped into Reliance by non-resident Indian companies based in the Isle of Man. And get this, these were shell companies with incredibly cheeky names like Crocodile Investments and, I kid you not, Fiasco Investments. Gurumurthy methodically traced how Indian investment rules were allegedly relaxed at the exact moment these offshore companies needed to buy into Reliance. His investigation suggested this was a tailor-made policy that allowed Ambani to secretly funnel money back in to prop up his own company's shares. I mean, Fiasco Investments? You couldn't make this stuff up.
Section 3. Uncovering the lone mela.
But it turns out the offshore shell companies were just the appetizer. By May 1986, Gurumurthy dropped his first truly massive bombshell in the Indian Express. He exposed an alleged domestic scheme he sarcastically dubbed the Reliance loan mela, referencing those political carnivals where government loans were handed out to win over voters. Let's break down how this incredibly complex financial maneuvering allegedly worked in 3 simple steps. Step 1. You set up dozens of newly registered shell companies, many conveniently sharing Reliance addresses. Step 2. These companies secure massive loans from government-owned banks. Step 3. They use those public funds to buy Reliance's own debentures. This effectively inflated the stock price and consolidated the management's iron grip on the company. The Express was essentially alleging that public bank funds were being smuggled to prop up Reliance.
And the sheer scale of the allegations? Absolutely staggering. Gurumurthy claimed that over ₹1 billion in loans were granted by 16 different banks to fund this scheme. According to the investigation, middle managers at government banks just conveniently ignored the Reserve Bank of India's strict guidelines to authorize these loans, and in some cases were allegedly rewarded with promotions for playing ball.
Section 4. Smuggled factory allegations.
But Gurumurthy's investigation didn't just stop at balance sheets and bank loans. In July 1986, it escalated into claims of physical smuggling on a scale nobody had ever seen before. Gurumurthy famously asked his readers a rhetorical question: if people smuggle watches and gold, why not a whole factory? He alleged that Reliance bypassed India's strict government capacity licensing by literally smuggling in the components of an entire secondary factory line. The claim was that by hiding the parts among regular sea and air cargo shipments for their officially approved plant, Reliance effectively imported a second 25,000-ton filament yarn plant right under the government's nose.
And the financial impact of that? 1.14 billion rupees. That represents the massive amount of customs duty Reliance allegedly evaded on those smuggled machine parts. The sheer level of detail in Gurumurthy's reporting was so compelling that it prompted official show-cause notices from the Customs Directorate, demanding to know exactly why Reliance shouldn't be heavily fined and its executives prosecuted.
Section 5. Reliance fights back. Now, as you can imagine, Reliance was absolutely not going to take this existential threat lying down. They fired back with a fierce counter-campaign, arguing they were the victims of a massive, coordinated witch hunt. Just to be totally fair and look at both sides here, check out this comparison. Vice President V. Balasubramanian actually issued a massive 60-page rebuttal. Where the Indian Express claimed shell companies manipulated stock, Reliance firmly countered that its management didn't own a single F-series debenture. Where the Express alleged smuggled factories, Reliance stated that all machinery was covered by official licenses and called the allegations entirely malicious. Ultimately, Reliance's main argument was simple. Their massive success had just created intense jealousy among traditional, slower-moving business rivals who are now weaponizing the press to destroy them.
As this paper war raged on, the wider business press in India actually fractured in real time. It was wild to watch. On one side, you had publications like RV Pundit's Imprint magazine, which heavily criticized Reliance's alleged manipulations and backed the Express. But on the other side, you had incredibly powerful voices like Jirlal Jain, the editor of the Times of India, and magazines like Business India, who are highly sympathetic to Ambani. They praised Dhirubhai's financial wizardry and his guts, arguing that his actions brilliantly exposed just how hollow and broken the overregulated Indian economy really was. Section 6. A paper tiger awakens.
The absolute most dangerous aspect of Gurumurthy's campaign, though, was that it didn't just stay confined to newspaper columns. It actively seeped into the highest levels of the Indian government. Following that explosive loan mela expose in May, Gurumurthy began circulating detailed position papers and recommendations directly to government officials. Soon enough, key figures like Bure Lal over at the Enforcement Directorate were paying very close attention. They started seeking out evidence of Reliance's offshore financial network, engaging foreign investigative agencies, and seriously evaluating these mounting claims. The threat had jumped from the printing press right into the corridors of state power.
The critical takeaway here is this major shift in the Prime Minister's office. Rajiv Gandhi, who had recently come into power styling himself as a crusader against corruption, realized that the Ambani empire and the sheer unprecedented scale of these alleged financial irregularities was a massive political vulnerability that simply had to be addressed. The government realized they could no longer just look the other way while the Indian Express splashed these investigations across the front page day after day.
So here's where we stand. As the Indian Express launches its most devastating investigative campaign yet, and the government finally awakens to the unbelievable scale of these allegations, we really have to ask, how is Dhirubhai Ambani going to navigate this unprecedented siege from both the media and the state? The physical war for polyester dominance might be over, but this paper war, it has only just begun. We'll uncover exactly what happens next and how Ambani responds as the siege tightens in our next explainer.